when is someone ready to take 200 or let's say 300-hour teacher training? How do you know whether you should and or whether you need another one?
Yeah, that one's tricky. So many of us have a love for learning. But then the question, what is the course? Like I'm already a 200 certified yoga teacher. Now I want to do a 300 hour, or this teacher that I love is offering not a 300 hour, but doing these other like workshops and stuff. And when is it? And that's going to be a nuanced question for all of us. And I think we have a couple answers for that. Shall we dive in?
We shall dive in. So what are the types of trainings and why, what are the different purposes of them? I'm like using us as an example. There's like a 200 hour, there's a 300 hour, there's 10. We're doing the lab. I am a lifelong learner too. And so I never want to say you don't need the training, but I think understanding what you need out of it might help you figure out, is now the time for the 200 or is now the time for a workshop?
Well, okay, so let's talk to the teachers who are already certified and loved, like are the course people who do every course and every workshop. Then there's maybe just a fine line of self-reflection that we could ask ourselves and go, I hope as teachers that we're not doing it as a way to hide behind putting ourselves out there. Like I'm just going to consume education and workshops, but not really put it into practice because I don't at the heart of it truly trust myself as a teacher. I'm still feeling like an imposter. So if I'm just taking all the courses, then I don't actually have to put myself out there. So I have a feeling a lot of us are going to listen to this and be like, yeah, maybe that's me.
Oh my God. I think that you could apply that. I did a mic drop I just did a mic drop. I think you could apply that lesson to just about anything.
Yeah.
Like learning wise, am I stalling the action because I'm learning? Am I not doing the thing because if I just take one more course, one more class?
And it's not simple and it's not super straightforward. I wouldn't even be like, I think for most of us, it's like yes and no, but yes, but no, but yes, right? Like it's not.
So do you think teachers fall into a trap of collecting trainings kind of instead of integrating what they already know? That's kind of what you were saying there, right?
So in the last year or so, I've been taking astrology courses, which is great. And so there's this layer, and anybody who does it, you realize it's not just pop astrology of like, I'm a Capricorn. And then like the more you dive in, you're like, oh crap, this is a lot and this is layered. And so I could see how taking course, so as a yoga teachers is the same thing. It's like there's so much to learn. But I've just boldly thrown myself into now doing readings for any friend of mine. So most of my friends have all had a reading by Brea. And I look at me, so I just finished a 10-week course, for example, and I look at me, even at the beginning of that 10-week course, the readings that I did then to 10 weeks later, and I'm like, oh, wow, I am doing this much more in depth at a different layer of knowledge. But then I did it that first one 10 weeks ago. We already had a little bit of a base of knowledge. But I think as teachers, we need to throw ourselves into it. I think some people who are learning this stuff are like, well, I'm scared, so I'm going to not look at somebody else's chart in this example for astrology, or I'm scared, I'm taking this course, but I don't want to teach it just yet. I think there's a boldness of just jumping out there because I learned so much reading other people's charts. I think my progress in 10 weeks was exponential because I was bold enough to be like, I'm not charging anybody for this. So there's like good ethics here. And I'm just with a disclaimer to everybody, like, hey, I'm learning. Let's read this. And then you're having that interface. And that's the same with teachers as well. So you're teaching your class. I might not totally know the concepts that I'm learning in this course that I'm taking, but I'm just going to throw it out into my class. This one thing, two things, and see how it lands. Because I say, like, we can get things on the intellect when we're in course learning mode and that course collection mode, where it's just staying in the intellect. And you're like, yeah. But now you have to do the vulnerable thing of like, oh, okay, now I have to like actually communicate what I think I know to people. And I might not communicate it very well, thus the imposter. So you kind of have to have this like boldness to be like, you know what, we're going to try this. And you try it a couple different ways and a couple different times in your classes. And you go, yeah, no, I'd actually still need to go back and review. I didn't do that well. The sort of like interface of it's not just spinning in your head. You're not just collecting course. You need to bring it to practicality. I think the maybe first check-in is, like do all the courses. I'm feeling that way. I want to do all the astrology courses. It's like it's a rabbit hole of amazingness to learn that I think we all do in our way. But let's bring it into practicality. And then what do I want to keep learning? And so as a yoga teacher who's a 200-hour teacher, I wouldn't recommend you can totally do it, but I wouldn't recommend jumping straight into a 300 because those are really big journeys each on their own. A 200 hour is a big journey in a lot of ways. It's not just the hours, it's the fire hose of yoga information and practice and process. And a 300 hour is going to be that same way. It's a process, it's intense. You're diving into all these different things. So I really think it's helpful for the teacher's nervous system to have time for that bigger course to integrate. And then that's where you can do these little ad hoc workshops or smaller mini courses or something that's like focused, right? So a teacher training is, whether it's 200 or 300 hour, is going to focus on a whole lot of topics, teaching you to synthesize them, hopefully by the end. But maybe there's a special interest thing of like, actually, I want to learn more about sequencing specifically, and somebody's offering a sequencing workshop. What do I have capacity for? Have I given myself time for it to land? Have I given myself permission to apply what I've been learning and not hide behind taking another course?
Yes. So I'm actually hearing a couple things here. I'm hearing with the bigger courses, so it's called like the 2 or 3 or even beyond. What I'm hearing and the way I'm interpreting it is almost being serious about it is like the lamest way to say it, but giving it almost the respect that it deserves because it is a big journey. And the way I would view it is, if you are committing to, spending half a year going into this journey, it is a commitment, and asking yourself, do I want to spend time reading and learning and practicing and diving into this and treating it like a possible transformative experience? And I don't want to put that pressure on you if you feel like have never taken training, but for me it was, and in a way I didn't expect. Like, I took my 200-hour training thinking I wouldn't teach yoga. I took it because I wanted to have a deeper connection with my practice. I was curious. It was just like, I love learning. So that's why I took my teacher training, and I got as much out of it as I could. And the unexpected part was that I loved teaching, and I actually left a teacher, which was kind of like, well, I didn't expect that. Right. And then the second piece you were talking about is these like special interests and things like that. I was like, yes, I actually really relate to that, because we touched on, like, your 200-hour is like you're just opening the book. You're hitting the foundational pieces, and it's good to let that integrate in practice. And then part of me was like, but I really desperately want to know about this one topic. And so I sought out further training with that. So I ended up doing back-to-back meditation trainings to explore all the varieties out there for me, because we couldn't spend, of the 200 hours, we couldn't spend 50 hours just on meditation. I really like what you're talking about, just giving space, like the capacity. I was thinking the artist way. I just did a video about like why most people fail or like quit the artist ways, because they don't realize how much work it is. And that's kind of the same thing with, I think, teacher training. Like, you're like, oh, it's just teacher training. I'm like, no, it's a lot, in a good way. You can get so much out of it.
No, it's a lot on like time, energy. Yeah, no, because so you're helping me think, like, articulate this in my brain. So as you were talking, I was thinking, right. So a 200 or 300 hour, let's say, are like foundation. So even 300 hour is building upon the foundation of a 200, but they're foundational because it's so big, because you're covering all these different topics. And like, and I'm just fresh off of this astrology, because that was like a 101. I had done a 101, and this was like a second 10-week course that I had done, and painting as well. So like being a beginner again in certain times of my life and seeing the struggle. So when you're doing these foundation courses, because there's so many layers to it, but the biggest layer is that you're learning a whole bunch of new things. And no wonder it's so easy to give up, like we used to with the artist way, because there's just so much that I think, again, like a fire hose of information. Or sometimes I said with the astrology, it was like, I'm trying to learn complex math equation. Brie never did a lot of math in her life. So it was like trying to learn like the whole complex equation, but I didn't know the parts enough to even do the equation. So if that makes sense for people. And so that's what these foundation courses feel like. You're just inundated in the process of learning, or anybody who's tried to learn a language, like anything that you are a beginner at, it is so easy to quit because it's so much at first. But the gratification when you stick through that. So when you do these 200 or 300 hours, and we always say this in our courses, we mark it at, like, I literally mark this at about a halfway point, because we've seen this consistently over the last 7 or 8 years running them. There's always a point where we start getting more emails from people, and they're like, I'm so behind, or I want to give up. I don't know if I can continue. And it's like, we're talking people down from the ledge because it is so much. And it's like, so remember, so there's a time and place, because on the other side of that so muchness from these foundation courses, it feels so good when it finally starts to synthesize. When the thing that you struggled with is actually making sense in a way that you like, it would have been so easy to walk away and been like, screw all of this. It's not worth it. Like, I haven't gotten to the point with a language that I've ever been fluent. I'm at the give up part. Every time I've tried to learn French. I know, but it's so easy to give up because it's so much. But I can just imagine one day finally committing to it and being fluent in French. Oh my God, please, please. So I'm saying all this because it's just like, it's so big to learn something. It's so easy to walk away, but on the other side, it's so good. And that's why we say, don't go into more trainings. Give yourself breathing space between these big foundation ones. And then look at the workshops, look at the little things as a refinement. Almost like, I hate using the word advanced, but it's like, if you had just done that little workshop on sequencing without having that big 200-hour training that did touch on sequencing, but in combination with all this other stuff, you wouldn't get as much out of it. But because you did that foundation, then the focus of sequencing, for example, then becomes way more expanded and way more effective because you've been teaching. It's not just like, I'm learning how to do this. You were in the real world. You have real world experiences. You've made real world mistakes. You've had real world wins in your classes. And then you go and do the sequencing class from that base of experience.
If you look at other physical practice kind of modalities, if you are a trainer and you are a certified trainer, you are required to take additional training. You're not required to take big training every year, but the expectation is these top-up courses. And I was just thinking of this because we were traveling this weekend to another city. My partner was actually speaking at one of these education days, and basically these trainers have to pay and sit in a conference room and listen to my lovely partner talk about 24-hour movement guidelines. Right. And that's just like a check mark that they have to do. So, okay, so that's one extreme of it. I think as yoga teachers, we have this really fun gift that we can kind of pick our own adventure, right? And if I get to pop in on a weekend or take the lab with you and it's these like exciting top up of information, maybe this is the piece that's been missing for me. And now that I've given myself time from my 200-hour, and I suddenly see someone's filling the gap of a knowledge gap or something I never really got to do. It feels good. We get to top up, we get to be re-inspired, we get to stay invigorated, all these things, and kind of absorb what we want from other teachers. It's really beautiful. And I think there's a space for all of it. The other thing I was going to mention was the 200. And what I was thinking, Brie, was because it's been 10 years since I took my teacher training, who I was 10 years ago is not who I am now. And what I would take away from it, just redoing a 200-hour would probably be vastly different. The other, like, my life example is I took my bachelor's and I was done, early 20s. And I'm now like, oh, maybe I should take my master's. Just because I did my bachelor's doesn't mean I would never go back to school. It's like for different moments in our life, that education brings something different, and I think you would approach it completely differently. Like, it's you can't help it. You are not the same person. So I do think there is a value of, like, if you've taken 200, like, I would take it again.
Yeah. With the right school, right? Or like of course, with the subject matters and the teachers that really resonate. But that is the key point of this entire episode, Ula. You just named it so perfectly. I think that is exactly it. Who we are at different stages and times will dictate. And even if you did the same course, let's say you did your 200-hour with one school, and then 10 years later, they were still offering it again, let's say. You went back to, because they would even be different. I'm sure they would have, hopefully they refined it over the past 10 years. So because learning, and I don't know how many times I've said this, my goodness, in my life and trainings, but it's like learning is never linear, ever, ever, ever linear, because we're different each time. And so maybe the crux of this, like, should I do a 300 or a 200? When is it time for the workshop? Obviously is so individual for each of us, but what do we feel? There's a benefit for both. There's a benefit for diving in and being like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for that master's. I'm ready for that 300 hour. I'm ready for French intermediate level 3. Like, I don't, whatever the things we're doing, I'm ready to expand and be in that uncomfortable place that I was talking about learning. Because once you're doing a 200 or an intermediate level course or 300, it's like confusion on a higher level. That's what this learning is. But we don't always want to be in that deep learning space. So the times that we want to just like pop into this workshop, do these shorter little things to augment stuff that we're already doing, and then push it, and then we're back in real world mode and applying that. I think, yeah, it's like, what do we have capacity for? What do we have finances for? What do we have time for? What do we even care about right now? So many factors.
Okay, so I'm going to just repeat back maybe some things I'm hearing, and you let me know if I'm out to lunch or you want to add to it. So I'm hearing things like, say you've never taken teacher training. You might be ready, because the stars have aligned financially. Let's call all that to the side, but you are actually prepared to give it the effort it deserves. Like, look at the time of the week. Do you have the support? Can you give it the time? Because guys, it's actually 200 hours. Like, we don't call it 200 hours just for funsies. It's like, that's how much education like practicing.
If not more,
like
in some ways.
If not more, don't be surprised that you'll be expected to, or should, I guess, like it's your journey at the end of the day. So I guess like a time commitment is probably a really good tell. Because in my mind, if I'm like, I would love to take a 200 hour, but there's no way I could spend, a little bit every evening, or maybe one day a month, just like buckle down and do a day of learning. Like, if I can't do that, then maybe now is not the time.
That's a big one. Yeah, because even when we were away at the Tuscany retreat this last fall, I was in the middle of just like a 5-week astrology course. And I was like, I can totally do it while I'm traveling. And that was not the right choice. And I ended up not finishing the course. Like, it was online, so I have access to it. But the live portions of it and stuff and the teacher feedback I lost out on because I overestimated my ability. Bree is away in like another country traveling, having fun, is not the same Bree who's at home wanting to like do a course. Those two Brees don't match.
Right. So if you're going to Italy for a month in the middle of your teacher training, maybe not the time.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, I was even, because we're going again next month, and there's another course I want to do, a 103, like another 10-week one, and I had to have this conversation with myself. I was like, Bree, you're going to have to wait till next fall when it's offered again, because who are you kidding? Do not try to fit this in.
Yeah. I will say, I think it's funny, if you looked at you and I, we are lifelong learners, and we have our own versions of learning. Like, before we started recording, I was waving around my most recent obsession book that I'm putting tags and notes and all these things on. And, I built out my own reading curriculum for the season. And where I'm going with this is, I think as a yoga teacher, you're a student. And that's also where those workshops, those labs, those top ups are so, so great. If you just are like, I'm always going to be learning, and you're just like open to that. Yeah, like, why not take that workshop?
Oh my gosh.
Especially they're usually like so low cost, like in the comparison, right? Like, what's an afternoon and $50 or whatever it is for like a little workshop here and there, just to keep loving what you're doing. I think that's so great.
Yeah, and do that check-in of like, okay, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always going to be a course collector, and that's okay. Welcome to Course Collection Anonymous, right? We all have that, our different interests, and that's cool. Because I think that's great. I don't ever want to be like, fundamentally as a human being. Yeah, like I hope we're never stagnant. So being a course collector, I think, it's just more the ones I've, like, for me, the ones I've never finished were because I've over scheduled, or they weren't the right fit. And so just give yourself that moment of compassion of be like, oh my God, this course sounds so exciting. Is this the time? Or is it an online thing that you have like lifetime access to? So maybe sometimes things are like that.
We do the online stuff. Actually, I just was like, the other flip version of this, if someone's like, I just need you to tell me if I'm ready to take teacher training, like, just get to the point. The other flip version of this is dipping your toe into it. Because I just realized, I was like, we don't tell people they can't take the lab. Like, you can enjoy taking something that's a low stake entrance to discovering teaching training. And like, within our studio, we have the move and learn classes with you. And even like, do you enjoy those? Like, pop in and learn a little bit of anatomy. It's like friendly and not scary with Brie and see if you like that. And if you enjoy it, maybe you will like teacher training. Because I will say, I don't want to intimidate people with the 200-hour conversation of like, oh no, it's so many hours. And then there's anatomy. And then like, honestly, it's paced. It's not like actually all at
Right.
once. It's paced. It's step by step building, and there's phone calls and there's community and mentorship and stuff like that. So I also don't want to scare you away because I'm so grateful I took my training.
Yeah, but yeah, good points. Because, right, so again, as always, there's never here's the exact answer officially for all, because we're all so beautifully different and at different times of our life. So just, I hope this conversation at the very least adds more confusion on a higher level, but in a good way, maybe, of like, oh, okay, no, that's some good food for thought. Yeah, maybe I don't need to do this course. Or you're right, like it's sort of auditing, like, do I like this teacher, do I like this approach? I'm going to go do their classes at the studio or their classes
I did that
online before committing. Yeah, smart.
Yeah, I paid for like a weekend intensive workshop with the teacher that I did my training with. Yeah, I paid for a weekend intensive. I went to the intensive and I just really liked her style and her values. I clicked with her, and it felt a lot safer to then commit the time and the money to the bigger training. I think I was just really scared to do that without knowing her because yeah, it's sometimes hard to tell because also not I mean, Brie, you're online, you're very visible, you're on YouTube. People can go check out your classes there if they want something like a tidbit. But there are a lot of trainings where you actually don't get to do that.
Yeah, I had a training like that in India once. And I remember at one point, it was a month, totally different story, but I remember seeing a plane fly overhead, and I was like, I was jealous of the people in the plane. That's how much I was like, this is a funny situation, and I'm just seeing this plane that I'm like, do you get to leave? So yeah, you really want to vet.
Yeah, I guess that's like aside from are you ready, it's like also make sure you double check what what you can expect from the 200-hour training.
Yeah.
They should make it really easy. Like we listed out on our website, like it's very easy to see the expectations around it and things like that, what's inside the training. So just do that, your due diligence, I guess.
Totally. Well, we hope this was helpful for people. And if you have more additions, or as always, as you're listening to this, like go into the comment and add your 2 cents. We always love hearing community conversations. So if you have something that we haven't covered that you've found helpful for determining, am I being a course collector, or am I just throw those into the comments as well. And of course, we just love hearing from you.
Yes. And as always, thank you so much, Brie. I learned so much.
You as well, Ula. I know it's a win-win-win. So it's a win for us, and I hope a win for you, our dear listeners, as well.